I think a good global citizenship resource would be something that can be embedded into the curriculum across all areas.
It may be an internet package or an online package that we can access.
I go to a search engine and just type in what I'm looking for.
We have a Skype link with a school in South Africa.
It needs to be child-focused.
Easy to use.
Oh, definitely. For teachers and children.
Absolutely.
And something that will really get them thinking about their role as global citizens and where they fit into it. INET is an international conference network for schools where pupils all over the world can conference with each other live. It's a totally free resource. You just simply need to register, submit work within a deadline, and then the conference opens live for a week. It's pupils only. They get a chance to comment on each other's work. They produce videos, podcasts, proverbs and poems. They were amazed at how many pupils from all over the world viewed their work, commented on it, gave them positive feedback about their ideas. The online conferences were split into 4 areas. There were 4 conferences all linked to global citizenship, so we submitted work to all 4 and they kind of carried on throughout the year. If you go to the INET website, for each conference you'll have a list of questions that will guide you through the ideas that the students need to talk about. There's also links on the website that will take you to animations and videos that we found really inspiring in terms of getting the children thinking and getting them to discuss the actual topics they were going to produce work for. So the links on there are very valid even if you want to explore the issues without actually taking part in the conferences. The actual titles of each of the conferences made them think very deeply about what it meant to be a global citizen, but also the fact that they were connecting with other children across the world and brought the whole idea of interconnectedness. That's what we wanted to get across to them. So the fact that this was going out worldwide, that had a massive impact upon them.
I'm really excited by the INET. I think the idea of putting children's work on there instead of work from teachers, it gives the children greater ownership over what they're going to be seeing and accessing on there. Therefore, they know that they're looking at other children's work from other countries. They'll be much more interested in it. They know it's not something the teacher's giving them.
I thought the INET was an interesting resource. It could be used towards Year 6 children and their school counsellors introducing different discussion topics and things, but it was definitely based more towards secondary children because of the vocabulary used and the way it was presented.
It's not the easiest website to navigate through, and it is slightly aimed at the older children. However, I think it's very important that Year 5 and Year 6 are integrating and communicating with secondary school pupils. So I'd recommend it for Years 5 and 6.
I think it's quite cross-curricular, it really is, because you could incorporate it into PSHE, you could bring it into language lessons, you could bring it into
geography,
topic,
obviously,
geography.
Topic,
I think it lends itself very nicely to most things.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with INET. Something I really like is the quality of the debates and the discussions that are happening. We're talking about poverty and how can we look after the environment, things like that, and these are real, topical issues.
If there's a forum posted for the children to use, they don't have to immediately respond, which in terms of Afghanistan would be ideal because there's obviously issues with connection and internet connection there. So they can respond in their own time, within the week frame. I think that in itself is a really useful way of contacting our schools and our partners internationally.
I've heard that possibly there'll be another conference in November 2009 and we're keen to see if that goes ahead, and definitely if that's the case we'll be on board because the experience was wonderful and the children had a huge amount of learning experiences from it.
One of my favourite resources for teaching global citizenship is a world map version of the game Twister. The mat that the children stand on is of a world map. So you spin the spinner and it will land on a certain country or continent, and then the child has to find that and put their hand or their foot on it. It's hilarious, and the children have a competitive desire to get to know which country is which.
Got here some puppets that we use in our school, and they're a mix of gender and from different cultures and different ages as well. These are used in our Key Stage 2, these puppets, but the puppets that I use in Key Stage 1 is a dog. And I really like using the dog because he could be male or female, he could be from any background, he could have any, come from any country in the world.
The children will immediately notice how differently the characters are dressed.
Lots of talking points.
So maybe that could begin a conversation about how in different cultures that there's a different way maybe of dressing, and also they could look at skin colour as well, because that's quite different as well.
Absolutely.
Global citizenship doesn't just mean, thinking about the world, especially with foundation stage and Key Stage 1, which is where I teach. We begin to look at the self first, and then and the wider community.
These would be fantastic, especially in reception. Children love puppets. And we have a lot of PSED focusing on different nationalities and cultures, because our school is so diverse. So what I would do is I would have this lovely girl, and I would give her a name, I would give her a background and really describe where she's from and why she's special. And then I would encourage the children to discuss where they're from, because the children have to be able to respect their own culture and understand their own culture, but also the cultures of others.
My puppet doesn't talk, I don't give it a voice, because I like to get the children's responses to something, not for them to feed off what I'm talking about. So I'll have the puppet whisper in their ear, and then I'll probably ask the children, what did the puppet say to you?
I think if I was in Key Stage 1, I would use them as a resource to get children talking about, what other people go through in different parts of the country, or different beliefs that people have, different cultures. I do think they're quite nice for that.
I think perhaps there might be a place for them. I don't think I'd particularly want to use them and introduce them as here's some children from around the world, let's have a look at what's different about them, because I don't think that would actually be very productive to look at differences. I much prefer to do that kind of thing by looking at what's the same about us all and trying to be much more inclusive.
I think that'd be really good for the children to see different skin colours, and just to have a play with as well, and get their own thoughts and emotions through as well. Puppets are very good for that. They let children feel, safe. So I think they'd be brilliant to use in our schools. What do you guys think?
These puppets are definitely a useful tool for beginning to look at becoming self-aware, and then becoming aware of the wider community, and for communicating. It's a good way to communicate, which is what we teach them through global citizenship.
A resource that I really like using in the classroom for whole group work is to use Google Earth on the interactive whiteboard. The children really enjoy when you can get the map up of the world and then you really zoom in on it, and it takes you right to the heart of the city or the place that you're learning about and what you want to be talking about.
I think with the advent of video conferencing, there's lots of free tools, for instance Illuminate, which has the ability to have 5 different people at the same time having a video conference, and there's a shared tablet and shared documents where children from around the world can contribute to the same thing, so that's very interesting.
Riglo can be helped to assist in the teaching of global citizenship and raising awareness of that, because it's all centred around an English family that move to France, and obviously they have to fit in, they get to know the customs and the culture, and of course the most important aspect, learning the language. It's a fantastic interactive whiteboard resource. The children absolutely love it because it's all based on a family of characters which are quite quirky and colourful.
I've just finished teaching the unit about food, so obviously that brought in the cultural differences between typical food in France compared to what we eat. There is a section that introduces different nationalities, and so that's another opportunity, as well as the children learning the French. It's also an opportunity for us to have another discussion about cultural differences.
Il est britannique. Elle est canadienne.
This is the starter screen, if you like, of the CD-ROM, and as you can see, the French course has been split up into 12 individual units, each with its own theme. If you select the unit, you will see then that within the unit there are several lessons, and within each lesson you have a whole range of activities. Basically, any icon which has a whiteboard image means it's an interactive resource, that's an interactive game or activity.
Il est français. Bravo!
Now this is actually a lesson plan because, again, with each lesson in Rigolo you do also have an outline of what you can do, how you can begin teaching the lesson. And in fact, if in this box at the top it actually highlights cross-curricular links, etc. The accompanying teacher's book contains all the lesson plans for the individual units. The children absolutely love it. Or they love the colourful characters, the animations and the activities.
What's fantastic is that it's all tied in with the Key Stage 2 language framework, which obviously brings in cultural aspects as well.
I think Rigolo, in terms of developing internationalism and the global dimension in your school, is a really interesting tool in terms of using it as a language base to introduce the children to global citizenship through language, instead of just looking at citizenship through, you know, PSHCE. It will be much more interesting for them to do that. For example, at Hillifield, using our French resources has helped the children develop their internationalism, but the Rigolo might help quite a lot more.
There are some meaningful links in terms of nationalities and celebrations. It's probably it's primarily a French resource. The teacher's notes are quite extensive. They're step by step, very easy to follow and show you exactly where to go with the resources, so they're quite impressive as well. I'm not sure if I would buy it for global citizenship. I'd certainly buy it for French though.
I think it's a bright and child-friendly resource, and it can be taken from the MFL curriculum and be transferred into a global citizenship curriculum to develop understanding of France and of other countries around the world.
In terms of which children it might be appropriate for, I think Key Stage 2 children will find it much more interesting. Key Stage 1 might find it a little bit challenging in parts, so it might need to be a lot more teacher-led. But definitely Key Stage 2 children, if they could sort of you know, investigate it themselves and sort of have ownership over their learning, I think they'll find it really interesting.